Today we're looking at a particular type of function called direct variation, and you'll soon figure out that it's a new name for math that you've done often in the past. I like to begin by thinking of this as a function game. When I plug in 0, 0 comes out. When I plug in 1, 3 comes out. When I plug in 2, 6 comes out. It takes you no time at all at this point in your career to realize that the rule is every y is equal to 3 times its x. Whenever a function is in the form of y equals a number times x, and for some reason they use k here, a number times x, it's called a direct variation, and k is known as the constant of variation. Well, we can also see the relationship if every y is equal to 3 times its x. In other words, 1 times 3 gives me 3, 2 times 3 gives me 6, 3 times 3 gives me 9. We also know, if we think of these as ordered pairs, we know that any y divided by its x equals 3. In this situation, we're going to call this ordered pair x sub 1. Okay, I got to move you over a little variation thing. X sub 1, y sub 1. And let's call this one x sub 2, y sub 2. That just means this is an ordered pair. This ordered pair 1, 3. And this ordered pair 2, 6 is like this. So I'm going to re-put this here. Y is equal to a constant times x, and the k is called the constant of variation. It's also true if 1 times 3 equals 3, then any y divided by its x is going to equal any other y divided by its x. Don't get fooled by these little tricky things, although we have done them. In other words, if y sub 1 is 3, x and x sub 1 over here is 1, that's going to equal the same thing as 6 divided by 2. And we know that that's always going to equal 3. 3 is the constant of variation. I'm sure that you've recognized that this is just a proportion. So direct variation, when I say something varies directly, it's really the same thing as saying something is proportionate to something else. So this is the way it's going to look in your questions. It's fancy words, given that, and that comes up a lot in math, given that m varies directly with n, okay, automatically we know that m is like x and n is like y. So I'm going to put parentheses here. That means that given that m varies directly with n, then I know that m divided by n is going to equal the constant of variation. I also know that any m divided by its n will equal any other m divided by its n. Okay, so that's my little parentheses over here. Okay, so then it says, find the constant of variation So to do that one, we'll just say, let's see, find the constant of variation if m equals 42 and n equals 2. So we know, because it says given that m varies directly with n, that means any m divided by n is going to equal the same number. So they tell us that m is 42 and n is 2. So to find out the constant of variation, we simply say 42 divided by 2, and that gives us 21. So the constant of variation is equal to 21. It also, in this example in your book on page 391, it also asks you to find m if n equals 3. Well, now that we know that the constant of variation is 21, we also know that any m divided by its n, they're saying find m, so that's the variable, that's the unknown, divided by n, because n is here, m varies directly as n, it's going to equal 21, and I'm pretty sure you all know how to solve that. I mean, right now it's 21 over 1, or we could cross multiply, but we're just going to do the fraction destroyer, so m equals 63. See how another kind of problem that you're going to get tonight. They might say to you, x sub 1 is equal to 45, and y sub 1, we don't know. All these sub 1s mean is that we're talking about this ordered pair xy, where x is 45, and we don't know what y is. Okay? And then it will also tell you x sub 2 is equal to 60, and y sub 2 is equal to 100. So that just means I've got another ordered pair of 60 and 100. And we know that any y divided by its x is equal to the same thing. So if I start out with the y I'm looking for, that's the one I'm not giving, divided by its x, which is 45, that's got to equal the other y that I have divided by its x. Well, I'm not even going to make this hard. So I know that, now you can see that this is a proportion. So we cross multiply and we get 6y is equal to 450. And when I divide by 6, I find out that y equals 75. Lots of you were asking if you could use calculators, and yes, that's okay. The other thing that you see in these are word problems that, honestly, some of you have been doing since 6th grade. If you look on page 392, it says the amount of interest earned on savings is directly proportional to the amount of money saved. So I'm just writing down the key words here, because interest is directly proportional to the money saved. If $104 of interest is earned, so because interest is going on the top, I'm putting it there, on $1,300, how much interest will be earned on $1,800 in the same period of time? So since we don't know interest, we'll call that x. We'll call this 1,800. And you easily cross multiply and definitely use the calculator here, and you find out that x is equal to $144. So it's important always to make sure you keep it straight. If you're putting interest on the top and saved on the bottom, then it has to be like that. But if it says y varies directly as x and y equals 6 when x is 72, y varies directly as x, and y equals 6 when x is 72, then that means the constant of variation is just 1/12. Okay, so don't make this harder than it needs to be. It should be a pretty easy night.